Egypt for the conclusion of one of the greatest squash events there is. Once again, the Ahram International has brought us some great clashes, and we've got one left to decide the title, as two former world number ones clash in the final, and who wins this one could also decide who goes back into the top spot in the world rankings. England's Peter Nicol versus Canada's Jonathon Power. We've seen so many of these, every one unpredictable, and this one even more so. Peter Nicol, now technically world number 3, has had erratic form since his injury at the end of last year. And he comes here after an early exit in Hong Kong, so he's looking to prove himself, and that's exactly what he's been doing so far. And his victory over David Palmer, now current world number 1, in the semi-finals, has put him in excellent mood for this forthcoming battle.
I love it here. I love the temperatures. I love the crowd, the setting, everything about coming to Cairo. I've had a lot of support here over the years and doing so well, and I think knowing Jonathon's record here, there'll be some cheering for me because they recognise me and they know who I am, but there'll be a lot of people wanting Jonathon to win because they haven't really seen him play here before. He's never done that particularly well in this tournament, so they might want a different champion, but at the same time I think I'll get a lot of support from the people that know me here.
Moody but magnificent, you might say. Jonathon Power, as always, unpredictable. He came here after a bout of a gastroenteritis laid him low in Hong Kong, but training or no training, he's never out of the top 2. And the results here show that he's virtually been cruising for him, but he knows how dangerous Nicol will be.
Peter is always, when he's on his game, one of the toughest players, if not the toughest player out there for me to play anyway. Especially with his style of game, he's got probably the most contrasting style of game for me. He would have to be the toughest opponent.
The atmosphere, as always, electric here in front of the pyramids, as we join our commentators now. Robert Edwards, assisted by former world number 2 Chris Robertson.
So the scene is set for this final of the Ahram International here in the desert alongside the wonderful pyramids, and it's an interesting one because we have the old firm back in action. Peter Nicol in the white shirt for England against, in the all black, possibly the biggest opponent of his career, Jonathon Power of Canada. And both of them have got to this final in good form. What I can tell you is on the head-to-heads, it's 12-11 to Peter Nicol, so it couldn't be tighter. And wouldn't say these two guys are the biggest mates on the tour. They really do respect each other, and both of them will want very much to stamp themselves on this game early. Both recognize and see themselves as the best players in the world, as they should. They should be confident. But Robbo, you've watched them through this event as it's unfolded, and where would your money be going at this moment?
Well, I think Peter Nicol's the Egyptian special man, isn't he, really? He does play very well over here. Power has looked very impressive, but has he come up against anybody of the class of Peter Nicol? And the answer would be no to that. And I think John Power, you never know with him, Robert. You've got to ask him some questions and you've got to see whether he wants to give the answers out. He has the answers, doesn't always want to produce them though.
You mentioned earlier on in the semi-final with Mark Challoner that one of the ways for Jonathon is to get into his head, and the quiet approach of Peter Nicol can do it.
Well, also what Peter does ever so well, Robert, is he squeezes the ball to the back, and when he does take you forward, it's tight and it has a purpose about it. Mark Challoner was unable to do that, and John Power will have to be prepared to be a lot more patient, and he won't have the same type of balls to jump on top of. So, I mean, we've got a great battle. Like you said, it's 12-11, 23 times. It's pretty close. David Palmer's now in this top 3 sort of echelon, but these are the two big players at the moment.
Well, yes, and if Peter Nicol were to win this, he can honestly say he took out the top 2 guys already have counted for Dave Palmer in the semi, and quite a match.
And out.
And now
1-2.
there stands the old enemy for him, Jonathon Power.
Well, we've heard Peter Nicol talk as well about how important it was to beat David Palmer. He feels he wants to get that #1 spot back, and you know, that's the motivation that this guy works off, little goals that he sets himself and little targets, and I got a strong feeling he's going to be pretty hard to beat out, particularly in this heat as well.
Well, I think Peter gave Jonathon a definite little look there about that nudge. There's maybe a little wry smile on the corner of Jonathon's lips. But I think Peter has pretty well posted his intention. Keep it tight, play it long, find out just what Jonathon's got.
Well, with the conditions, the ball's quite bouncy, as you can see. It's warm, so obviously physically it's going to play a role.
Now, the referee, Nasser Zaran, has set the scene here. He's given 2 strokes to Peter Nicol, and Jonathon, already his brow is creased.
Well, it is, and I've never seen Peter Nicol look so determined and also asked so early for a couple of decisions. I mean, he really has got the bit between his teeth in this event. I don't think he wants to be put off by any, no, I wouldn't say antics, but any sort of gamesmanship from anybody, whether it be David Palmer or Jonathon Power. And for him to look that way now means he's going to look like that way all the way through the match, I think.
Now, how is this going to unfold? Jonathon Power, the magician of squash, and Peter Nicol, Mr. Professional. They're contrasting in colour today on court, and they're contrasting in personalities, they're contrasting as human beings. The one thing they share is the ability to play this game at the very, very highest level.
Peter Nicol's dictating the length at the moment, Robert. There's too many balls there that John Power can't seem to put his wizardry on. Getting squeezed at the back quite a bit. Just as I say that, Peter's got a little bit loose. And then an error from Power on the drive. A patient shot there, maybe.
4-2.
It's a good solid start, and you can already see John Power thinking, oh, this is going to be a long, hot night. If he's going to keep knocking these balls to the back, I'm going to have to be on here for hours.
That's not Jonathon's way of playing. He likes to control, to destroy, and he picks up the stroke here.
3-4.
Certainly they can't complain about the quality of referee in here. Nasser Zaran is a world referee from the WSF, World Squash Federation, the #1 referee in Egypt, and he's working with Yahia Fahim, who is also a very competent referee as his marker. Robbo, I always wonder the effect a referee has, not just in the way they work during the match, but the message they send out to the players, how they're going to referee the match. That has to have an effect on the way they play.
Well, clearly if they're giving no lets for people that aren't making effort to get to the ball, or strokes for people that aren't making an effort to get out of the way of the ball, then clearly those people will make more effort to get it, or more effort to get out of the way, and it does clean up the match. And you are right, they play a much bigger role than people imagine, and then they get easy decisions like that one, Robert, straight down the middle. Just moving on a little bit, Peter Nicol has only hit 1 ball forward there in that probably the last 50 shots. He is setting out his stall. Again, he plays a nice drop shot there only because it was definitely on, and he is trying to take the legs out of the Canadian. He's trying to set the tone right now.
These are body shots going in, and Power's going to feel them.
6-3.
Wow, I mean, John Power there just did some stretching then on his back and down to his toes, and just sort of wonder whether he's already thinking, I'm not happy with this. Again, we can watch the construction here from Peter Nicol.
Enjoying the squash there on the left, Mr. Ibrahim Nafir, chairman of Ahram.
And you too can enjoy more after the break.
With the score at 8-4 to Peter Nicol serving there, we welcome our viewers back. And this match is starting to warm up. Peter Nicol has already, as Robbo has said, set the scene. He's laid out his stall. He's going to make it as tough as possible. Now, can Jonathon Power go with this very competitive young man, born in Scotland, now playing for England, Peter Nicol?
I mean, Peter did look in great form physically against David Palmer in the semi-finals, Robert. He had plenty of energy at the end compared to his opponent. And errors like that would annoy him quite a bit. And I just get this strong feeling he likes it out here. He likes the heat. He likes the physical encounters and how it hurts the opponents to be able to deal with it.
Yes, he talks about Ahram as being one of his favourite events to play, and you can see why. His record out here has been really remarkable. And Power picking up a couple of strokes.
7-8.
Again, Peter's trying to hit the ball deep. It's going to happen occasionally. Hasn't given many strokes away. Would be a little bit concerned though at 7-8. He's dominated this first game really. Might start to take the ball a little bit more forward. Or does he settle back into the length?
And Peter Nicol, a fine example for squash players to watch. If you just watch a couple of rallies, just watch his feet, watch the movement, see how he plays the ball, maximum effect for himself, and then back to that tee, bouncing back there always. But that length, well, nobody can do much with that.
Yeah, nice response there from John Power.
Now when Jonathon Power starts things like that, I start to worry. There are VIPs. We have the Minister of Tourism, Minister of Youth and Sport, and of course the Governor of Giza with us this evening. So these gentlemen, good friends of squash, been with us before, enjoying the night.
And they've all got suits on.
Yes, indeed.
So they can talk to each other about the
There,
suits.
Wayne Bryars, Executive Director of PSA in the front row, looking very tanned and sprightly.
And, you know, getting back to the squash again there, Robert, the last two winning points from both players, and the third one in a row is all been length shots. One from Power,
10-8.
two from Nicol. Both these players realise they do not want to give the front of the court away too soon, particularly Peter Nicol. And there is a lot of good tactical play going on. Great bit of variety there from Peter. Only played straight drops so far, Robert. Brings in the cross-court drop.
Oh,
Power
Jonathon
doesn't
was a
win.
long way off that. And when I watch Jonathon, I'm always watching for his body language. He does tell you a little bit about how he's feeling. Unlike Peter Nicol, you can't tell from Peter just what he's going through. But with Jonathon, much more theatrical, much more open. Front court shot.
And you're watching Jonathon Power's body language. The people at home will, I guarantee you, Peter Nicol is focused in on it.
Now, anguish, annoyance.
12-8.
Well, he got back to 8-all, but to me, Robert, he hasn't been in this first game. He hasn't played one rally where I actually feel he's dominated the whole rally. I know he's won a series of points at various stages, but he hasn't dominated, and he does dominate his opponent, whoever it might be. Unless he starts to get a little bit of that on Peter Nicol, it's going to be a long old night.
Well, I don't think that's Jonathon's idea of fun. There are demons that go on in his head sometimes.
13-8.
And from 8-all, 13-8, 5 in a row.
And Peter Nicol will be very happy with this. He's on cruise control at the moment, and Jonathon's going to have to break him up.
Well, to be honest with you, Robert, he's only hit probably about 10 balls to the front of the court in the whole of the first game. I mean, that's not a lot can go wrong with that. And they tend to be forced shots that he has to
Just left.
play it
Just left.
forward.
Right side. 13-8.
Peter,
He's got a racket in the face. He's not interested at all, is he?
no, he's locked in. He's in his own zone, this guy. that's a lovely touch. Feeling the ball into that left-hand nick off his forehand.
14-8, game ball.
And it's game ball. And Peter will be pleased to take this first one with, in his eyes, probably considerable amount of saving of energy. He's done it. Peter Nicol, 1-love up in this final. Peter Nicol back on court now, serving to start the second game, having won the first. And Jonathon Power, how much has he been stung by that? Is he going to come out with a change of plan, maybe a different mental approach? He's going to need something, because Peter Nicol looks to me like he's going to play a big, hard game, and he's prepared to camp on that court for the night.
Well, he'll certainly have to come out harder. What may be in his advantage, Robert, is first game's gone, the ball might start to slow up a little bit, but he cannot afford those type of errors. You are right, Peter Nicol will set the same stall out. 15-8, convincing first game. Why change it?
Yep. Jonathon, with so many talents, so many gifts.
Not it. Hand out.
He's back in hand. A little look there from Peter Nicol, saying to Nasser Zaran, I think it was a let, you know.
Well, he didn't say much, but the message came across, didn't it?
Yes. It's amazing when somebody doesn't ask very often. When they do, you see the referees squirm a little bit then. Especially somebody with the reputation of Peter Nicol of not asking unless it's genuine.
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? He doesn't ask very often, he doesn't look very often, so when he does, all the referees think, oh,
it carries weight then, doesn't
well,
it?
It does, doesn't it?
Now this is a more solid rally. A little bit of meat in this. Jonathon coming up for it, and it's paid dividends.
And that's what he has to do. He wasn't able to do it in the first game. He wasn't able to control the play from the back of the court. Peter Nicol put him at the back, Robert, and he wasn't able to deal with it. There, we saw the skill. Beautiful backhand drop from quite a way back.
Now, is that going to wake up this great talent from Canada?
Again, you see the ball coming in from the back. Peter Nicol, he may have to change his tactics here a little bit if he finds that
3-1.
John Power is what we call picking him off. He comes back though, good response off the serve.
Hand out. 2-3.
No messing from the backhand of Peter Nicol there. Now, when these two players play at their best, it is a pleasure to watch. And are we going to see this happen? I think it's really on Jonathon, because Peter Nicol, I think, is going to play a big Peter Nicol match. Al-Khatib there on the left, one of the greatest soccer players ever to come out of Africa, and a great hero here in Cairo. Together with Sawi, our tournament director. Very hard-working man. Watching this match develop.
Much better length from Jonathon Power. Squeezed
Not it.
a couple of bows forward. Couldn't quite see that, Robert, could we?
Hand out. It's not it. Not it.
Jonathon asking the obvious question, where do I go?
Hand out. 4-4.
Nasser Zaran is not going to get involved in a discussion with him, and Jonathon frustrated by it. He's claiming I should have direct route to the ball.
I'd have to say again, Robert, the crowd quite quiet, aren't
They're
they?
subdued. They
Yeah.
are subdued.
No Ahmed Barada around. Maybe they're missing him badly. But
Well, I think the world of squash misses Ahmed. And,
but usually they're a lot more receptive, even if Ahmed's not in the final. And I don't know if that's a testament to them, or the quality of the squash is not exciting them enough. We do get a little bit spoilt over here, having so many great players.
well, yes, I've wandered around a couple of their clubs, and there's not a court that isn't people on who really can play this game. The greater gypsum wrist seems to have spread through all of their players.
5-4.
There, another example of Peter Nicol, construction of rally, worked the ball deep, worked it in short well, got the pop-up shot, and absolutely lashed it across the court.
Jonathon is where he likes to be, in front. Delaying. Mr. Napier smiles.
They enjoyed that a little bit more.
Jonathon Power is still playing a little bit of catch-up squash here. 8-10.
No let.
And frustration.
And out. 11-8.
And Peter Nicol definitely having to take the ball forward a little bit more. John Power's got his act together at the back of the court. Game's livened up a little bit more.
And that's Jonathon Power at his best.
And out. 9-11.
Now the crowd would love this to get tight. And Peter Nicol would like it to go easy for him.
Out. 12-9.
And as long as he can do that, it might well be. He certainly is still in the driving seat in this second game, having taken the first 15-8.
Yeah, I thought about the stroke. Thought maybe I won't get it, so I'll just back him away and put it back in.
Did it well. A pensive Jonathon Power. But he's starting to show signs of the real player that he is. Peter Nicol is not going to alter for anybody. You'll never get anything less than 120% from Peter. But with Jonathon, he can go hot and cold, but he can go boiling hot sometimes.
All credit to the referee at the moment as well, Robert. He's got Jonathon Power going through and playing a lot of these shots that he would normally stop and maybe ask for lets for. The game's got a little bit of flow.
Yes, let.
Yeah, it's a good decision.
And that's what we talked about earlier on. The referees making the players play the game. They set out how they're going to ref it, and once the players know that, they play accordingly.
Yeah, good effort from John Power to get around. Clear let, bit of contact there from Peter Nicol. Well done, Mr. Referee. That livened the people up as well, didn't it, Rob? You know,
Well,
quite
it's
like him
definitely
diving on there.
A
And
little mumble coming from that. And the game now able to continue. Of course, when the court is wet, it is like an ice rink for these players.
No let.
oh, good decision. Oh, good decision. Ball was clear.
Peter Nicol
11-12.
mouthing the words, "Oh, what?"
I just think Peter got that a little bit wrong. I think he thought there was going to be a bit more contact there. Very good reffing.
Now this is getting tighter, and this is what we expect from these two classy players. Terrific width from both of them, short and long. And Jonathon's definitely moved up a gear from the man we watched in the first game.
Well, he's got better length and his short balls are starting to go in. Peter Nicol is having to defend a lot more. He's not attacking with his length.
And again, Peter Nicol using that lob so well.
Just let. Yes, let.
Away goes the wristband.
11-12.
And Peter thinks he should have had a stroke, but it's not to be. Hardly a murmur from him. And then drives the ball into the bottom of the tin. Good moments for Jonathon Power.
Yeah, that is it's a great moment for him. Poor shot from Peter, lack of concentration there.
Reverse angle from Jonathon. A few flicks round the front, and a request from Jonathon.
It's no let. I tell you, you should stop. Ask for let and did no let. No let.
Oh, and I've got to say that's another great decision. There's no reason for a let there. He still played the shot and he's being consistent.
Well, he's telling him, if you want to let, stop, ask.
And I think this is Nasser have seen Jonathon Power over the years. He knows how Jonathon likes to play the game and how he sees things, and Nasser's saying, well, I don't quite see it the same way, mate.
In fairness, Nasser Ahram was a bit of a player himself in his day.
No let. And out.
Lovely audience. Love their squash.
There's more no-lets flying around here than...
Yeah, it's like confetti at the moment, Robbo.
They are, aren't they?
And he's forcing Jonathon to play. He's not asking for a lot of these. I thought he'd have asked earlier for that, but not to be.
And out. 14-13 game ball.
And it's game ball again to Peter Nicol, and if he takes this, it's 2-love in this final. And Jonathon, not known as a great fighter from behind, likes to be a bit of a front runner. Again, Peter Nicol finding the width and the length in the ball. Jonathon is doing the work, he's running around, and in that case it paid dividends.
Wow, A for effort there from the Canadian.
And out.
Like you said, doesn't enjoy it, but he did it. And he deserved to get the mistake there from Peter.
14 all set. 3.
So 14 all, and Peter Nicol has been given the choice, 1 or 3, he's gone for 3.
Well, Power just has to win this game. It's a must-win game. 2-love down against Peter Nicol. He's got no chance, I would say.
Yep, he's got to find a little bit of magic, and this is where he can be so dangerous. These big points now, 14 all. First one to 17, and it's Peter Nicol strikes first.
Well, you could see
15-14.
there, yeah, it looked like Peter was going to stop and ask for a let, and then he realised, oh, hold on here. If I hit this, I could win the point.
Always the best way to win it. Nobody can argue with that.
No let.
And
Well,
Jonathon.
that's another good decision, Robert, isn't it?
I think the ref's done a great job.
14 game ball.
I'm not sure what Jonathon's opinion of that is.
Well, I don't think anybody wants to see a game littered with let after let after let. I know I certainly don't, and the people watching there and probably the people watching at home don't want to see it either, so the referee deserves credit.
No.
Oh, beautiful.
Jonathon really ran him ragged there. But not a complaint. Peter Nicol, head down, moves back to position.
15-16 game ball.
Wow, that was the finish, Robert, wasn't it? Not easy to drop a
Superb.
ball in the nick when you're expecting to do it as well.
Very silky is Jonathon Power at his best, but that's his worst. And Peter Nicol is now 2-love up. Looking good in this final. Peter Nicol back to the fray. He's 2-love up. He's in the position he likes to be. He's ahead. He's controlling things, but albeit not as tight as he had in the first. The second game, very, very tight. Jonathon Power starting to show the glimpses of what he's capable of.
Yes let. Yes let.
Can he get himself up, Robbo?
Blue, quiet please.
From 2-love down against Peter Nicol, not where you want to be.
Well, he did show much more of his ability in the second game, Robert. I would say, though, he was always chasing the game, never got in front, and he is a front runner, John Power. He does like to get a bit of a lead, relaxes him. He's able to see the shots a little bit more. And I'm sure he would want a little bit more of a cushion in this game, but he's not going to get it like that.
1 love.
Peter Nicol has taken the first point in this third game, and he is going to make it very, very tough. First few points should be very tight. Neither player can afford to let the other one run away. And Jonathon now is a different man from that first game, but Peter Nicol onto that and driving it for a winner.
2 love.
2-love.
And don't know if anybody noticed that then, but Peter Nicol just paused a little bit on that drive. Waited till he felt...
You ask for let. No let. No let.
He waited till he moved cross-court and played it straight.
3 love.
There, John Power. Are you asking for a let? Yeah, no, you can't have one.
Well, he's stopped rowing about it now. It's
Nicol.
Well, there's a resignation here, Robert, isn't there, at the moment? he hasn't come out firing here. He did come out in the second firing. Not sure he's done it in the third.
He needs to get himself up, because Peter Nicol will gratefully take anything that's going. It looks as though the Peter Nicol love affair with Cairo, with Ahram, is continuing. And for Jonathon, this has not been his greatest tournament on the tour.
Well, we could be wrong. I mean, he did play a hell of a lot better in the second game, but it's just the shape of the game at the moment. His body language is not fantastic. Peter has looked untroubled, really, even against David Palmer. It was a fantastic match, but he really did dominate for large periods of that match.
Peter Nicol just getting himself in there, not asking, pushing his way past to play the ball. Wants to keep it going, wants to keep the momentum.
Stop.
And that ball not up. Jonathon argues the point.
And out. Ball was double. 5-2.
Yeah, I mean, the dodgy pickup, Robert, wasn't
It
it?
looked like a double to me. I've got old eyes, I'll appreciate that, but it certainly looked like a double.
Well, it took a long time to come off the racket, and that's one of the judging points a referee would look at. Contact took quite a while, so again, frustration.
Jonathon is not looking a happy man at the moment. And Peter Nicol will get his foot down now and push the pace on.
Go to ball. Drop the ball. And out. 3-6.
3 points adrift, Jonathon Power. 3-6.
Yes, left.
And again,
Yes,
a let
right.
request. He's given one, although he feels he should have had the stroke.
3-6.
Young lady who is herself an ex-professional squash player. Sagazi.
Oh, what a return there from Peter Nicol. John Power knocked him down the line. Peter Nicol flipped up the drive and inch perfect on the side wall. Well, I think it's Peter Nicol's day.
Yes, left. Yes, left.
The signs are there. He's 2-love up. Jonathon seems to be mentally struggling at the moment. Peter Nicol is focused and he's very direct.
And there's a lot of flow to the match, Robert, in terms of, you know, there hasn't been many lets at all. If there have been, there have been no lets. And Peter Nicol enjoys that. He gets into a rhythm. He gets a groove going with his swing. He keeps the tempo of the match up.
No request from Peter.
No, no request. A well-constructed point there from John Power.
So 4-7 Jonathon Power. 2-love down against Peter Nicol, and desperately looking for some inspiration, some chink in the armory of this Scotsman who is such a brilliant champion. Peter Nicol, if he wins this, will go 13-11 in their head-to-heads. He must be favourite at the moment, Robbo.
Well, this type of rally, even though it went to John Power, it's the type of Peter Nicol rally that he loves.
Left side. Right side. Correction.
Little correction there from the
5-7.
referee. Right side, and the score is 5-7 Jonathon Power, but of course he's 2-love down, and Peter Nicol crunches that into the left-hand nick off his forehand.
8-5.
And you just get the feeling, though, Robert, at the start that Peter Nicol imposed on John Power, how he was able to dominate him with length, take his confidence away. This is John Power's short game confidence, didn't give him a chance to use it, and when he did, it was poor. And since that moment on, John Power has really struggled to get any type of lead in this match. I know he got to 14-all in the second, but I don't think he had a lead in the whole match, apart from maybe
9-5.
the beginning of a couple of games.
And that's 9-5 to Peter Nicol, and it looks like Peter Nicol will continue with his wonderful run here at Ahram.
And it's just his length and his width all the time, as it's always asking questions, turning people at the right time. His short game's not too bad either.
Not a lot of flaws in the armory, is there? And I know Peter Nicol wants to retain his world #1 spot. He's had it for the last few years and has coveted it. And in fairness, he's brought a great deal of honour to it. He's been a great world #1, world champion, British Open champion, gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games. Got it all.
Yeah, he's had to buy another couple more cabinets, I think, to put the trophies in at the moment, but...
Well,
Stop.
wow, that was a lift.
Yeah, and Power called it, to be fair. He called it.
10-5.
10-5, he's into double figures. Our VIPs. There in the background, Mohammed El Manshawi, president of the Squash Rackets Federation of Egypt.
Hand out.
Jonathon back into hand, but he's really looking up the north face of the Eiger. This is a big one to climb. Peter Nicol drops that uncharacteristically into the floor.
17.
He's done two of them today, hasn't he? One on the forehand, one on the backhand, so both sides the same, I suppose.
Well, he's evened it out.
He has a bit, yeah.
You won't see any more, I don't think.
I didn't think I'd see one after the first one, to be honest.
Jonathon.
Well, the touch hasn't been there, has it?
Hand
And that's because Peter Nicol has
11-7.
imposed the pressure on him. He hasn't given him many opportunities. You see there, Peter's father, Pat.
He's looking pensive, but I don't think he should be that worried. I think Peter is now looking very, very hot to take this title.
Well, unless the game dramatically changes, Peter Nicol never gets ahead of himself. Always very, very methodical in his approach. If anything, he stepped up the gas here a bit, Rob.
I know Peter Nicol was so disappointed in his performance in Hong Kong and wanted to put it right, put the record straight, and he's come here, not a word, not a murmur to anybody, back with Neil Harvey to work, and then his coach, of course, Neil Harvey, and then back here, and he stamps himself back on the game.
Yeah, but isn't that great though, Robert? I mean, many players in his position in maybe past years would offer some excuses up for his first round loss
It's not his style, is it, Robert?
and you know, I haven't heard anything. He's answered the critics by coming back the next tournament and looking pretty good.
Yes, indeed. I think we're watching the final throws from Jonathon Power, but that's a terrific stop for him on the forehand side.
Hand out. 8-11.
Well,
8-11.
he's only 3 down,
Yes.
but I mean, we're talking as if he's 8 or 9 down, because it really does feel like that. You know, we haven't seen
There's no zip there, Robbo.
no zip at all. This is the most I've ever seen Peter Nicol dominate John Power for many a period of time, and
Knowledge. Knowledge.
I think that's a pretty consistent call again. There was contact, but the ball was tight. And if he's going to keep true to his word, that is a no-let.
Well, you guys always said it. Give me consistency, and you've got a good referee.
Well, at 9-11, there's a bit of spring in John Power's step now.
Now,
And I'll tell you what, this would be...
it'd be terrific
Well,
for the crowd.
10-11.
He's coming back.
Well, what do I know? Not a lot.
10-11.
10-11 is just the 1 point now.
Well, how quickly it changes, particularly in this American scoring. It's very ruthless.
Now, Peter Nicol, in situations like this, usually
Just left.
puts a big cap on the game, just locks it in, works hard, and makes his opponents work hard. There in the background, Mark Challoner, semi-finalist here this year, watching, enjoying the squash.
Well, Robert, I mean, we just missed that then, but John Power has just served out. And how many times have you seen a player at this level, major final, PSA event, serve the ball out?
It's
Well, that's amazing. That is amazing. Gives heart to everyone at home, I suppose.
well, yes.
It's,
Wonder where Jonathon's mind is at the moment.
wow, that's just amazing. That's unbelievable. And Peter realises, what is he doing?
And out. 11-12.
Well, it's 11-12. And if Jonathon can take this, then are we back into a big match?
Oh, we would be in the big match. It would be a massive body blow to Peter Nicol. I don't think he could believe it's 11-12.
That's tight.
Just
Peter,
left.
Peter asks for the let, gets
Oh,
it.
excellent call.
Yeah, he had cleared it.
He had cleared it, and the ball was tight.
11-12.
Well, Nasser's having a super game.
Yeah.
He's my man of the match.
Yes, the referees come in for some stick on occasions. It's good to cover them in a little glory.
No let.
Now,
No let.
Oh, he's got the courage of his convictions.
13-11.
Big time to call no let, but he's right. I mean, he is right. If you look at the clear of the path, then he was through. There was no reason to stop. He's right.
there was a pressure point there. Nasser in the centre. Nasser Zaran, ex-player himself.
Well, I wouldn't argue with him, Rob. I don't know about you, but he's quite burly built, isn't
He's
he?
a solid boy, is Nasser. Cares very much about his refereeing as well. Always wants to ask if we feel he's done a good job. And that an absolute kill, like an arrow, that ball's gone in.
And out. 12-13.
12-13. This is cliffhanger stuff now.
Well, he's done well, John Power, to come back. Can't help but feel that Peter Nicol lost a little bit of focus there. He must have felt like we did. Oh, and then he gets the beautiful, beautiful mistake from John Power.
12, match ball.
That's the one you want, isn't it? You want another one now on match ball.
Well, championship point. Peter Nicol retain his title. He's done it in style. And if he does it, it'll be 3-love. Can he do it now? The first time of asking. After the Egyptian players, I would go so far as to say that Peter Nicol is very much a big favourite here with the Egyptian crowd. Recognised as a terrific sportsman.
14-12, match ball.
Stays championship point. Peter Nicol, what a riposte following his unfortunate Hong Kong Open performance. He's come back, done a great job all tournament, and he's re-stamped himself on this game. A win against Dave Palmer, the current #1 in the semis, and is this going to be a win against Jonathon Power, his big adversary in the final? Oh, this is tight. And that looks like a winner. It's not. Jonathon really put the wings on his heels for that. This is a fabulous rally, Robbo. Wouldn't think this was championship point, but it is. And yes, he's got it. Peter Nicol retains his championship, Ahram 2001, and he is delighted and exhausted. What an effort he's put in.
Yeah, I played well this week. I was pretty happy to make the final. Played awful in the final, but compared to the earlier in the week, but 5 matches in 5 days, it's tough work, and he played good squash, so I can't complain. I was pretty happy with my week overall. He played pretty tight, but I couldn't step up. I was just moving poorly. All week I'd been moving really well on the ball early, and I was just moving slow, getting the ball late, right from the first point. So it was tough for me to get in front, which is my game, and he played well. He played tight on the wall.
Yeah, very, very happy that played David Palmer in the semi and then Jonathon in the final to beat both of those guys who are both above me in the world rankings now. Really pleasing, and both relatively comfortable as well. So I thought I played well in both matches. Got better against Jonathon, and looking forward to playing the next couple of tournaments and getting better even still.
To the 2001 Ahram champion, Peter Nicol.
Well, a very pleased man indeed. Back to what he will feel is his normal form. The Ahram Trophy, yet again, crucial turning point in the season. As we take a look at what that now does to the actual Super Series rankings, the top 8 players who will meet to decide the Super Series title at the end of the year. It looks like this at the moment, but there's still plenty to fight for as those just outside the top 8 make their final efforts over the remaining tournaments of the season.